Makis lives in Athens and Brussels. I would also want to bring to your attention his novel, or rather essay, how would you call it, on Miles Davis, that was published last summer. And he sort of refers to this novel in that novel. So you tell us more about it.
Thank you, Helena. But are we ready? I mean, okay, are we all right? Well, thank you for the invitation. The second in 15 months, was it? And back in April, right about the time when Documenta was starting, and we had this debate here about with Stafilakis and this other girl who was Despina, yes. And well, it was quite good. And back then, I was already starting to write this novel, which is out. There's a new book out, this one. Like 2 days ago, it came out. And it's a police novel happening last summer with Documenta as a background. It's a crime novel. So this might be interesting. Yes. Yes, yeah. And this is the... Helena was talking about this one, which is the previous one, a book on Miles Davis, which was being launched last year while I was writing this one. So now it's getting complicated. But the hero of this one is a lot like the author of this one. It's an alter ego. So he's arriving in Athens in the wrong city, in the wrong summer, to present a book on jazz, which is not on Miles Davis, but on John Coltrane. And so he's completely submerged by this thing that is happening and that he doesn't really understand, and he doesn't want to understand it, which is the contemporary art vortex. And he's getting lost. So it's in Greek, of course, because I'm Greek, but I had translated the first 2 chapters, very short ones, I assure you, by an amazing translator called Guido Maranzana, and who is very, very keen on 30s and 50s and 40s pulp novels, and gave it a touch of Chandler. In English, so. The title of the book in Greek is Deles Κουβέντα, which cannot really be translated in English and any other language because it's a common ground for Greeks. It's a verse of a very, very famous song that more or less only Greeks know. And it rhymes with Documenta. Deles Κουβέντα means hush hush, or don't say a word, or you don't say a word. I would translate it completely different in English. Guido proposes undocumented, I would say undocumented files, or perhaps hush hush, but that's not very important. I'll give you the first 2 chapters. First of all, and before that, 2 phrases. I think I am past the illusion that when life becomes profoundly incoherent, the novel comes in to repair it. That's from Returning as Shadows by the great Paco Ignacio Taibo II. Also, they had Rembrandt on the calendar that year, a rather smeary self-portrait due to imperfectly registered color plate. From Farewell, My Lovely by Raymond Chandler. Chapter number 1. I knew nothing about contemporary art. My second coffee was long gone, the paper cup was in the seat pocket, and the tray was stowed. I was readying my temples for the onslaught. The 2 Frenchmen next to me hadn't kept quiet for a solitary second. They were now discussing art. Differences and similarities between surrealism and kitsch. Everybody was talking about art, loads of art. Everybody except the two Swedish girls in row number 8. Ladies and gentlemen, we have started our descent towards Eleftherios Venizelos International Airport. We kindly request you. This was the worst possible moment to get a book out on John Coltrane. A jazz book launch in midsummer Athens and right in the middle of Documenta, a kind of global art intelligentsia full house. Nobody would show up, not even my publisher. Where is he? Where the fuck was I going? Look down there, for instance. The control tower. Doesn't it look a bit like a Doric column? Said one of the Frenchmen. Yes, it's totally like a Doric column. Totally, said the other. It is and it isn't. But if the Greeks had its entire circumference coated in marble all the way up and made it look exactly like a Doric column as a reference to their cultural heritage, say, then that would surely be kitsch. Do you see? My problem right then was neither with Coltrane nor with the Documenta. It was with the goddamned Aegean Airlines planes and their insulation. The dreaded pressure spike before landing. I was slowly turning blue. Every single time. I was pressing my palms against my forehead in an attempt to make it through the next 10 minutes. The French were no help. On the other hand, on the contrary, if I took an authentic ancient column, or a neoclassical one, and coated it in glass with silver fabric, like Christo, exactly like Christo, only he does wrappings, while this would be a dressing up. Yes, you're right. So, if I disguised the column as a control tower, then that would be surrealism. Cabin crew ready for landing. I had turned the skin of my forehead into a plastic bag. If I went on, I would tear it. My ears were thumping violently. I thought my eyes would pop out of my nose. The sunlight was knifing in, not a cloud in sight, an ocean of olive trees. If it were the Colonne Vendôme, we would even dress Napoleon as a pilot, or an air traffic controller, ha ha, ha 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 ha. We touched down, people clapped. Everything was wrong. I got up last, wore my Ray-Bans. At least there was a heat wave on. Chapter 2. The Swedes boarded the bus I missed. I saw them. I saw the bus leave. Sporty girls. Hiking rucksacks, anatomic sandals, and bandanas around their necks, which they loosened when they exited the terminal. A coolness of rhythm. Exquisite legs. Bye-bye, Sweden. The next bus, chalking on 4 international arrivals, was abuzz with artsy jargon. Tomorrow's scheduled concepts and spaces and installations, whether there's any anarchists left in the Exarchia quarter and if we might get to see them, whether the temperature drops any at night and if there's tiger mosquitoes. I wasn't listening. My ears were still blocked from the flight. In 45 minutes, I would be in the Asclepiou street flat. I would call my publisher about the launch, collect the Seat Ibiza, and vanish into the grooves of the city. Okay, so that's the two first chapters, translated ones, right, of this book. I feel like repeating it because maybe it's not, this is in Greek, right? I don't have much more to say. I would gladly answer any questions if you have any. Or if you don't, we can get,
You have to have it translated into English. I mean, there's available copies for sale for those of you who can read Greek. But otherwise, you have to have it translated.
Yeah, I know. Well, it just came out. The idea is to have it translated in German, which makes sense. Because, there is, yeah. And also French and all the other languages, as a matter of fact. But, yeah. But it will be out technically on Monday in the bookstores. And we had a launching 2 days ago, which went quite well. We had hundreds of people. It was quite impressive. Some of the people here were there, but Hugo, Theo, and well, there it is. What can I say? It's a crime novel, okay? There will be blood. No, he's not there. I think he's not there. Well, it's what in French and also in English, actually, they've kept the Gallicism, you could call a roman à clé, which means that's a key novel. Say many of the, like Charles Bukowski's Hollywood. Like he says he narrates a story which is quite true, quite accurate, with changed names, but which then gets completely delirious. Let's say it's based on a true ground, but then the fiction takes over, and it explodes in a supernova of fiction. Actually, going to metaphysics, yeah, supernatural stuff. I've kept one bar name, which is my favorite bar in Athens, as it is in reality. I've changed even the name of the bars, well, not the streets, the venues. I've imagined lots of artworks. I've described others in a quite accurate mode. But yeah, it's a roman clé. So yeah.
Have you assisted in some exhibition of documenta?
As a matter of fact, I did. Yes, in most of them. Well, she asked if I understood correctly, if I assisted, if I visited the venues and the documenta, the exhibition itself, and the answer is yes, but not everything. Not every. I didn't go to Castle either, I have to say. Have to admit, but this is not documenting anything. It's so, it's 1 week in the life of a person, exactly 1 year ago it could be, under heatwave and contemporary art, in a completely subjective framework and quite biased from his warped point of view. If it is a political comment, it's a pulp novel, so it has, of course it does, because when you set something like this in Athens, in the crisis or in the post-crisis, or however we want to categorize this epoch we're having, you can't avoid being political. I mean, even a dialogue with a cab driver, like a mental cab driver, is political, not because the subject will be political, but because everyone sweats political stuff. It's unavoidable everywhere. So yeah, if you have to be honest, intellectually, you have to, yeah, at some point.
Is this your hero's most important moment in his life? The way you sort of imagine his journey as a character? Is this a sort of important event in his life? Or a period that it's important for him?
I'm not sure. You mean if this sequence in his imaginary life is his climax, his own climax? No. It's not his lowest point either. But, you know, we get some elements of his past. He's a bit older than me, he's a bit tougher than me, he's a bit, you know, more courageous than me. He goes there, you know. He gets the girl, and then he's an anti-hero. Then he loses it, but it's okay. He's cool. He's a typical 40s pulp novel hero, but in Athens of 2017. So because I thought that was very important, that was very interesting, because the pulp novels actually in the States and then in Italy and Spain and Latin America are the offspring of a crisis. It's the offspring of the crisis of 29. And all these impossible characters that come in the 30s were actually possible to imagine because of the crisis, because everything was completely upside down. And thus, I think that Greece, the Greece of crisis, and especially Athens, is also very interesting for that, because it creates impossible characters. Unreal, which get real. They are real, yeah, at the same time. But that wasn't your question, really, but yeah, it brought me there.
It's a good answer.
If you want to buy it, it's next room, okay? Go get it, it's 15.